Hey everyone, and welcome to the Life Podcast. I'm Melissa Vogel, your host. Welcome to the show. It's summer, you guys. We're here, we're in it, we're doing it. And during this time of year, we are exposed to so many things. We are swimming in more pools, we're eating more food on the go, things in a package, we're drinking more bottled water. I've had more pop than I care to admit to. Not like full ones, but like, yeah, I'll take a couple drinks here and there. Totally not used to my system. Um, we had a birthday party the other week. I had some ice cream cake. Like I'm just exposed to a lot more, right? And this episode is all about that. We are talking about endocrine disruptors and how much that impacts our health and our fitness. And I say in here a few times, like, people think I'm crazy. I know I'm crazy, and there are certain things that I am crazy, but this topic I'm not crazy about. And there's a lot of science backing this and how much it actually disrupts our hormones. And then what happens? What are the symptoms when you have this shit show going on in disrupted hormones? Jared St. Clair is our guest today, and he has been on the show before. He was on episode 255. So if you want, go back and learn more and hear Jared's like awesome information, go back and learn. But he is the guru of supplements, and he's also the host of Vitality Radio podcast. So go and check out his podcast. And he even says in the episode that he has a couple episodes that are over an hour long where he deep dives into the topics that we're talking about today. But this was an important episode to get out now because of the time of the year. And everything that we're being exposed to impacts us 100%. And today we're talking all about hormones. And mostly, like, right when I say that, and I say this in the beginning of the episode too, so I don't mean to be redundant, but I had to bring this up because people hear hormones, they'll see it, like in the title or the description, they'll be like, they're probably talking about like women's hormones and, estrogen and progesterone. I wanted to say this up front at first in the intro and what I'm doing right now, that when I say that to Jared and we start talking, you know what the first thing he talks about is men and testosterone, and then women and testosterone. Not even what came to mind when I first thought of like, oh, hormone disrupting. Didn't think testosterone. And honestly, I just thought women. My head didn't even go to men. And that's the first thing Jared jumped to was testosterone with men and women. And this episode, we are talking about how does this impact your health and fitness journey? How does this all really work? Like, what is disrupting our hormones? We've talked about this before on the podcast. We've had other specialists and guests and people who really, really dive in deep to this. And we all know we shouldn't be eating and drinking out of plastic at all. I have personally cleared out my home of most plastics. Everything is stored in glass. We have very few plastic plates or bowls or cups in my pantry. It's all stainless steel or glass, which no is not super convenient, but it's worth it. And we know things like that, like plastics, and everything is plastic, you guys, everything. We're surrounded by it. But the food that we're eating, if you're eating out of a can and soups and canned fruits and vegetables, the lotions and soaps and shampoos that we're putting on our skin, and men are spraying cologne, and all of these things are disrupting our hormones. And you know what's really big right now is pest control. There are a million and one mosquitoes and spiders, and, I get it. Like, we've had ants before. I don't wanna deal with ants, and it's terrible. And they come and spray the outside of your home, and all these things, you guys, they add up, and this is what's disrupting our hormones. Well, when you have disrupted hormones, you are looking at a long list of side effects. And this whole episode is not doom and gloom of like, yeah, well, we're disrupting our hormones and this is what happens. Jared breaks it down, how it actually works, how it's actually impacting us, and then what we can do and how we can clean our system out. So then if you do have to supplement with testosterone, if you are boosting your testosterone naturally, and just cleaning things out can boost your own hormones as well. But what to do if you are on an HRT or a bioidentical hormone or something like that, or if you are a guy and you are supplementing with testosterone, that is only as good. Your body can only take it if basically, and you'll hear us break it down, it's only good. You can only take it if someone is there to open the door. So if we take it into our body and say, like, you're on a testosterone shot and you take it, great. It goes into your body and it's knocking on the door to get in. If no one is there to open that door and let the testosterone in, you're fighting a losing battle. You're just up that river with, you know, going and going and going against the flow, and you're never going to get anywhere. And why isn't anyone answering the door? Why isn't your body accepting it? That's what we're talking about today. It's a really, really good conversation. And I do have to say, Jared has a supplement, EndoCleanse, and I talk about this in the episode, so I won't dive into it too much here. But he has a supplement called EndoCleanse and then a liver vitality to help support your liver through all this too. And I had blood work done. God, it was probably like a year ago now. I get it done every 3 months, but the initial one that I had gotten done, and they were like, "Your liver needs a little bit of help. You have some inflammation going on." And of course, the first person I go to is Jared. I'm like, "Hey, this is what we're looking at. What do we do here?" And I started the endo cleanse. I did like a 3-month cycle. I got off the liver vitality, had more blood work done, and they were like, "Wow, what did you do? Like, this is great." Jared, I know Jared. Jared St. Clair has spent his whole life helping people optimize their vitality through education and supplementation. He grew up behind the counter of his family health store. You guys have to go back and listen to his story and his journey. And he started managing at the age of 15, and then he bought it from his parents at the age of 22. 30 plus years later in this industry, Vitality Nutrition is one of Utah's most respected independent supplement retailers. If I have a question of anything supplement related, Jared is my go-to guy. Like, he is the one that I go to. He's also the host of the Vitality Radio podcast and formulator of his own unique supplement line, including the nationally recognized Vitality 5. Jared has built a reputation for translating complex health science into real, actionable answers. And he has well over 30 years of one on one experience working directly with real people. His knowledge isn't built in a lab or lifted from some textbook. It's been earned across tens of thousands of conversations with real people chasing real results. So his gift is making the complex simple so you can stop guessing and start making supplement decisions with real confidence. You guys are going to love this episode. It's so good. And we will have Jared back. He is going to be on the show, keep breaking things down. I think our next episode, we were talking about doing an entire episode on ashwagandha and how it can help drop cortisol levels. And he has a new line coming out talking about that. So lots to come, but this is the episode to listen to so you fully understand the importance of not disrupting your hormones. And then if they are, which all of ours are, what do we do? How do we clean it up so we can be optimized? All right, everyone, check out the show notes. We'll put a link there, information for you guys. Never miss it. And as always, go back and listen to the other episodes. It's totally worth it. You're going to hear Jared on episode 255. We have a discount code with Jared. So go into the show notes. You'll see it there. And then you guys can keep using it every time you order with him. They're so good to us. They are really, really good to us. And after you hear this episode, bare minimum, you're going to want the Endo Cleanse once you know how it works. And it changed my life. All right, you guys. Enjoy the show. Jared St. Clair, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be here. We've been trying to put this together for a minute, but I don't know if there's two very much more busy people than us, but here we are. Glad to be here.
We're making it work. I'm really excited to have you back on. We're going to be talking all about hormone issues and disruptors. And I think this is a topic that we can't discuss enough because I think a lot of people don't realize how much it's affecting their overall health and more importantly too, well, maybe not more importantly, but their health and fitness journey
Yeah.
and losing weight and actually seeing results. And there's so many people too that are like, I'm doing everything, but you know, I'm not seeing the results. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Well,
See
yeah.
it?
And the other thing that you probably hear, I know I hear it all the time. I'm not sure how much you hear about people's blood test results, but they'll say, my doctor says everything's fine, but I'm not getting the results I'm looking for.
All the time,
Yeah.
all the time. And you know, what's funny is, because one of the products that we're going to be talking about, I started, what was that one called? The cleanse.
Endo.
the endo cleanse, and my blood work was fine. And then I went to like a specialty company and I'm like, look at my hormones, check everything out. I need to make sure everything's okay. Cause the last time I told people to check out my results, they were like, you're fine. I'm like, no, let's, do everything. And then it came back, I was like severely anemic. I'm like, see, you wouldn't even have known that had I not asked. So I went even deeper and I was having not liver issues, but it wasn't optimized. It was not at its peak performance, and, of course, the first person I'd be like, "Jared, look, help, what do I get on?" And sure enough, I was on that for 3 months plus the was it the liver cleanse?
Yeah, liver vitality.
The liver vitality,
Mm.
and sure enough, went back 3 months later, they were like, "Wow, everything is great." I'm like, "Nice."
Love to hear that.
Nice. So, okay, you call it like a hidden epidemic. The
Yes.
hormone issues are literally everywhere. Why? Why do you think it's an epidemic?
Well, because the interesting thing about me is that I've got this long experience talking to people about, supplementation and all this stuff.
Yep.
I've been doing it for pretty much my whole life. And am seeing things now on a regular basis that I never saw before. I'm seeing women come in with like zero or near zero testosterone, free testosterone, and oftentimes almost no testosterone as well. I never used to see that at all. I see guys in their 20s and 30s with testosterone that used to be reserved, low enough levels for people like my age, 50, 60, 70 years old even. There are numerous studies now that show that the average 40-year-old in America, the 40-year-old male in America is
Mm.
now dealing with the testosterone levels of what a 70-year-old was dealing with 40
Oh
years.
my god.
So it's this precipitous decline, and it's not just men, it's women. And we never even used to hardly talk about testosterone with women, but it's a big deal. And so I call it a hidden epidemic because most people don't realize they're dealing with it until if they go to like a functional medicine
Right.
type clinic and they look more deeply at blood, they have no idea.
Right. Well, and I think when people hear hormones and I start saying like, "Oh, today we're going to talk about hormones and disruptors," I think of people automatically think women and
Sure.
estrogen and progesterone and like menopause. And you dove right in and you're like, testosterone, men decline, women, testosterone decline. And I think a lot of people are listening right now going, "Oh, geez, I wasn't even like expecting that." And that plays a major role for everything in both sexes. I find it so fascinating that you can see and witness this decline. Yet
It's crazy. I remember the first time, this is years ago now, I'm trying to think, probably at least 15 years ago. I had a regular customer of mine. I'd known him for years.
Mhm.
We'd never talked about hormones before. He was really into bodybuilding. He mostly was coming in buying protein and creatine and those types of
Yeah.
things. And he came in and he said, "Jared, 39 years old. I just got married. We were trying to have a baby. I went in to get all my hormones checked, and my testosterone is in the 200s." And for reference, for people that aren't aware of kind of how the numbers work, a
Mm.
guy at 39 years old, especially 15 years ago, probably should have had testosterone in the 7 or 800 range. And he said, "What's going on?" And I said, "Well, let's talk about it," because it was really just about that time that I started becoming aware of
Mhm.
how big of a deal these endocrine disrupting chemicals that are just all around us now and totally ubiquitous in our society are impacting us. And that was one of the first kind of aha moments that I had because prior to that, I hadn't really had a bunch of people coming in with their actual numbers. We had guys that were in their 50s or 60s saying, "Hey, I've got low testosterone or low libido, or I'm struggling with, gaining muscle or whatever."
Yeah.
But I wasn't seeing it in like 30-year-olds. And at that point, he was like the first guy that really made me aware. And then it's just been time and time and time again after that. I get guys that are in their like mid 20s that have those numbers now.
Jeez. Ooh, and at regular, like, health food stores or, like the Nutri-Shops and things like that, what do you think they're saying to these guys that are coming in? Because these guys are just going everywhere and they don't have a Jared or they don't know about you that they can get stuff online and everything. What do you think how do you think they're handling things in shops like that when these men come in and they're like, "Dude, I need muscle. My T's low."
Well, the first thing is almost always, what do we do to raise testosterone? And it's kind of the hammer approach. Let's give you something that's going to be pro testosterone, boosted up, but they're not looking really at the root cause of why is the testosterone low in the
Right.
first place. The root cause is all of it, right? We have to understand, okay, so if this is now systemic in our society where everybody's dealing with it, and it really does appear that everybody is dealing with it,
Here.
then we have to recognize that it's not just a you thing anymore. It's a societal thing or it's an environmental thing. There's something going on that's affecting all of us. And yet it's interesting. Very few people talk about it, and if they do, it's exactly what you said. It's almost always, well, why is my PMS so bad? Or why are my hot flashes so bad? But not why is my testosterone so low? That is something that people are just barely starting to talk about.
Yeah.
And we can't glaze over it for women. It's such a big deal for women because this is something, Melissa, that I don't know how many people in your audience will realize this. I bet it's a really small percentage. But did you know that women as a total have more testosterone in their body than estrogen and are supposed to?
I did not know that.
All right. So
Did
that was a
not know
shock to
that.
me when I discovered that.
Yeah.
So they're measured differently. One's measured in picometers and one's measured in nanometers. And so it looks like estrogen is higher as a number,
Right.
but it's actually much lower as a volume. Women and men have more testosterone or are supposed to in their body than estrogen.
Hmm.
Men have way more than women do in
Right.
testosterone, right? And that's, we all know that. But testosterone, if you just think about it that way, you think, okay, so if I'm actually supposed to have a bunch of testosterone, even if it's not as much as what a man is supposed to have, and my testosterone is tanking, that has to be impacting me in a negative way. And I can share all the negative ways that it does.
Yeah, well, I'm really curious how it messes with, like, your training results, your overall health in general. But, first, let me back up. So, because this is called EDC, correct?
Mhm.
And you can give the whole name for it too. But people, I'm sure people are listening going like, "Well, how the hell does this start? Like, why are we getting so disrupted? Where's this coming
Yeah.
from?"
Well, they're endocrine disrupting chemicals is what they're called, and they are disruptors. And let me explain first how they disrupt, and then I'll explain where they're coming from. So
Okay.
we all have cell receptors for a variety of different things. We have receptors for nutrients, we have receptors for hormones, and
Yep.
so on. And the receptor in this at the cellular level that receives the sex hormones, that's going to be estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, is the same receptor. And so these endocrine disrupting chemicals are known as estrogenic, or they'll be called xenoestrogens. Xeno just meaning foreign. They come from without, outside of the body. They're not made inside of the body. And they come from a variety of places. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what happens is because they are estrogenic in nature to the body, they kind of look like an estrogen.
Yep.
Then they plug into the same receptor site that our estrogen or testosterone would plug into. But they do something that really creates all kinds of problems. And really, there's two possibilities. They can actually go in and deliver a message that's the wrong message. So the cell is receiving a message from an imposter, basically,
Yep.
and that confuses the system as to what it's supposed to actually be doing. Or they'll connect to the receptor and they'll just hang out there. And essentially, it's as if the cell has its ears plugged to the hormones that we're actually producing.
Mm.
And these things are, if you think about walking through a field and you get a bunch of burrs in your sock and how big of a pain in the butt they are to try and pull out of your sock when that happens, it's the same idea. They will connect. The way that things are supposed to work, let's just say we make testosterone over here. It travels to the receptor site and attaches to the receptor site. It delivers its message. The body naturally metabolizes that because it's a natural part of the human body and the human communication system.
Mhm.
And then it leaves through the liver and then out through the body. That's how it's supposed to work. But these fake estrogens, they go in, they attach, they stick there. They don't deliver the right message or they don't deliver a message at all. And then they just hang out and prevent the body from being able to actually deliver the message that needs to be delivered. And when this happens thousands and thousands and thousands of times, we have all these cells with their ears plugged. Then the body starts to downregulate. It starts to say, well, there's nowhere for me to put these hormones. So I'm not going to make as many of these hormones because there's nowhere for them to go. Nobody's going to answer the call that they're trying to make. And then that's when testosterone production can come down. Now, it can happen to estrogen and progesterone as well, but primarily what we're seeing is a significant decline in testosterone. And what is really important to understand is with hormones, it's like pretty much everything else in the human body. It's never really about how much you have. It's about the balance of what you have across the spectrum. So like having enough testosterone is great, but not if you have not nearly enough estrogen
Right.
to keep that in balance and so on. And so, but the problem is when we go in for a regular blood test, and they look at your testosterone, and maybe they'll look at your free testosterone, which most doctors don't, but some do. And they look at your estrogen and they look at your progesterone, and the numbers look okay. What they're not ever seeing are the fake ones that are in there that are clogging up the works. And so, even if you don't have necessarily too low of a number on, let's, since we're talking about testosterone, we'll say testosterone, you can still have endocrine disruption because the blood test doesn't show the fake estrogens that are in there that are clogging up the
Yeah.
works. So then, if the body is A, not able to receive the message, and B, not making as much of the messenger, then we end up with this disruptive situation where the hormones can't communicate like they're supposed to. And when we talk about testosterone, one of the things that I think almost everybody knows universally is it is a critical element to muscle building. What
Mhm.
a lot of people don't know is that it's also a critical element to fat burning. It's a really important combination, and it's a major factor in motivation just to get your butt in the gym in the first place. And so, if we have the testosterone that is significantly lower than it should be, especially if our free testosterone is low, all of those results are going to suffer.
Well, it's funny you say that about, like, it plays a major role in the motivation of, like, even getting there, like, and if men and their numbers and their testosterone is low, I know several men, and men reach out to me, they're a partner to a client, and they're just like, I don't have it in me. I can't do
Yeah.
it, and they get really stuck, and a lot of them are on antidepressants, and they're like, how do you get the motivation? Like, they're always talking about this motivation, and I don't think any of them have gotten their blood work checked and checked their testosterone levels, and I think there's still this weird misconception of like, "Oh, that's, like, for old people to do," or "I'm only 40, I'm only 35, or I'm only 45, like, do I really need to start checking my testosterone yet?" Like, I think there's a huge misconception around that.
Well, not that's 100% the case, and I've definitely seen that. In fact, a lot of doctors don't even start checking testosterone until guys are in their 40s, and some doctors are still not checking testosterone in women, which is an absolute horrible mistake.
Mine
We
didn't.
need to know what's going on, both men and women, for sure. But when you look at it, it's not just that. Blood tests. One thing that a lot of people don't realize about blood tests is it's a kind of a mean average. So let me just give you a number. At my age right now, if I look at my blood test result, it says I'm 53 years old. It says that I should have the testosterone between 300 and 800. So
Okay.
first off, let's just think about that range. That's a 500-point range. There has to be a difference between 301 and 799
Right.
in terms of results, right? But also from 0 to 300 is only a 300-point range. So to say that you're normal, but you're at 330 that's not normal. That's suboptimal for
Mhm.
sure. It's in the normal range, but those test results or those ranges are based on people that aren't healthy as a general rule because blood tests are mostly still taken by people who are not well, and they
Right.
take an average of people who are not well and then say this is where you should be.
Oh,
It's
god.
absolutely insane, but it's how it's been done in this country forever and ever. So if 300 is low normal and 800 is high normal, when it comes to testosterone, I am absolutely a believer that we should be pushing towards that high normal
Mhm.
range. So even if your doctor says it's normal, that does not mean the same thing as optimal.
Right. I can hear people screaming right now going like, "How do we fix this? What do we do? How do we know?" We'll get to it, people. We'll get to it. So what are EDCs? What starts this process? What are those, estrogen, xenoestrogens? Like, are we talking food? I know the answer to this already, but are we talking food? Are we talking makeup? Are we talking about the pesticides in the garage? Like, what are we talking about here, Jared? What are those things that come in and stick and bind and disrupt everything?
Yes, we're talking about every single one that you mentioned and a lot.
Everything I named.
Now, one thing that a lot of people do know and have heard because it's kind of made the rounds now, especially on social media, is
Yeah.
plastics. Storing your food in plastic water bottles,
Yes.
all that type of thing. Interestingly enough, we live in a world now where plastic is, I mean, what would the world be without
Everywhere.
plastic, right? I mean, my microphone stand is made out of plastic. And so plastic is everywhere, but plastic coming in contact with your food is a big deal. And so we now everybody can and ought to have probably a stainless steel water bottle at this point. Hopefully, you've already heard enough about this that you've switched out from plasticware to store your food in to glassware. One thing
Yep.
that a lot of people in the fitness community, and you know this, Melissa, are doing is they're food prepping, right? And they're putting them in these black plastic containers and they're throwing them in the fridge or the freezer for the week. Well, that's an endocrine disrupting container.
And they put it in
So
the microwave.
yes, and then they put it in the microwave. So we go cold and then we go hot, and that releases those chemicals into the food, and then we ingest those chemicals.
Mhm.
And so, like, on the one hand, we're winning because we're food prepping, we're getting high protein, lower carbohydrate,
Yes.
whatever it is that we're trying to do. And on the other hand, we're actually creating disruption.
Right.
So there's a lot of that kind of stuff. And then body care is big. But the thing that's kind of interesting, if you think about how trends go and how, podcasts like this kind of influence the world over time, you get enough people talking about it, people start to change their ways. Well, it's kind of like gluten free, right? If you were a celiac 20 years ago, good luck, man. You couldn't eat anywhere.
Right.
And now, if you're a celiac or you're dealing with gluten free, there's restaurants all over the place that you can eat at. There's
Mhm.
all kinds of gluten free cookies if you want to still eat treats or whatever it is.
Yep.
And that's kind of how it is with endocrine disrupting chemicals. There's so many options now that aren't endocrine disruptors. Every health store in the country is selling shampoo that doesn't have endocrine disrupting chemicals in it. You can get cookware that doesn't have endocrine disrupting chemicals in it. You can get makeup that doesn't have endocrine disrupting chemicals. So it's out there, but it's an awareness thing of kind of figuring out what they are. And what I tell people, rather than giving them a laundry list, because it's a long list on a show like this that they're not going to remember, is
Mhm.
just simply do a Google search, or if you like to use AI, throw it into Chat GPT or whatever.
Yeah,
What are endocrine disrupting chemicals that might be impacting my life? And then don't get overwhelmed with the list, because the list is going to be like, well, holy crap, that's everything I use.
I know.
That's okay. Just find the first thing. If it's I drink a bottle of water in plastic every single day, make that a bottle of water in glass or stainless steel. Make that your first change. If it's your shampoo, make it that your second change. One thing at a time knocks these things down, and that helps a lot. But
Mhm.
also, we have to recognize that even if we clean it all up, and my wife and I are, you've never seen a house that has less chemicals in it, like, because we were very aware of this problem, right?
Yeah.
So we cleaned all that stuff up. 50 to 60% of the stuff is done to us. It's in the air. You go into a hotel or a restaurant or your friend's home and they've got a scented candle burning or whatever it is. We're getting all that stuff, even if we
I
clean it
know.
up. So we have to be aware of it enough to clean up our own act, and then also what to do about it for the stuff that we don't have control over.
Right. Well, I'm always talking about like the bucket with my kids and how we need to keep our bucket. Everyone has this bucket we're carrying around and we need to keep it as empty as possible in our own home. So, yeah,
Yes, yes, yes.
mom's going to be a little bit psycho about you drinking out of bottled water. Like, yeah, and I'm gonna give you shit if you give me that lotion or you wanna use this bath bomb that
Right.
has crap in it. No, you're not gonna go soak in a bathtub with pink, fuzzy, floating stuff that's all
Mhm.
fragrance and chemicals and dyes. Like, we're going to say no to those things because when you leave, we're exposed. We can't get away from it. Like you said, going to a hotel, like sleeping in their sheets. Like, I don't wash my sheets with that crap,
Right.
but
But most everybody else still is, right? Especially industrial. And then you wonder why your girls in this country, not yours in particular, but our girls in this country are having periods at 8 and 9 years old now, when that never
seriously.
used to happen, right?
Well,
And
and
that's
acne.
I mean, we want to talk about a problem with our health. That's a major problem with our health. So I call it the hidden epidemic because it's, people don't realize just how big of an epidemic it
No.
is. It is everywhere. We
Mm-mm.
cannot escape it, and most people are still not talking about it. And that's why I wanted to bring this topic to your listeners
No.
today.
People think that I'm, like, crazy. I mean, I am crazy in some ways, but with
I
this
didn't know
kinda
that.
yeah, duh. You listen because I'm crazy. But things like this, we really do need to open up and wake up more to this and start changing. So what I have to bring this up because I know a lot of women that they go to their doctors and they're fixed right now. I have to bring this up. It's on topic, but it's a little off topic. Birth control. We see women in their 30s, 40s, close to 50s, and they go in and the fix is birth control. And they're like, this will balance everything and fix your testosterone. I had someone tell me this last week. And she's like, yeah, they said this will fix my testosterone. I'm like, hold on, I'm gonna ask Jared about that when he comes on next week. We're gonna bring that one
Well,
up.
That's fighting fire with fire, like quite literally,
Right?
actually, because birth control is these are also chemical estrogens
Absolutely.
that are being released into the body. And if people haven't heard of this, and it's on topic, but it's off topic. If we talked about it, we could spend 30 minutes just on this. But if people aren't aware of birth control, what's called, oh, now I'm going to forget the term for it, post birth control syndrome. It's something close to that.
Mhm.
People that have been on it for 10, 15 years, and when they get off of it, they're not normal anymore. Like things are really, really bad. That is due to this massive amount of endocrine disruption that has happened over those years when they're on it. So birth control is a mask. It
It is.
masks a lot of the symptoms. You can all of a sudden stop having really crazy periods when you're on birth control. In fact, you usually stop having them, period. And it can impact you in a lot of positive ways from a symptomology standpoint. But it's the same idea as like a proton pump inhibitor for acid reflux. Yes, it fixes the symptom, but it actually makes the problem worse. So it's not an optimal solution. And it's a tough one, especially from a dude's perspective, because women are on birth control sometimes because their doctor says, do this, it'll fix your symptoms. I think that's always a mistake because there's a better option. But sometimes they're on birth control because they don't want to have a baby.
Right.
Right. And so then it's like, okay, well, now you have to figure out how are you supposed to get around that? And I'll leave that topic for another time.
Right.
But if you're addressing your hormone disruption with birth control, that is not the right direction to go. And frankly, in the end, it's going to make things worse, never better.
I know. And by the time women like get off of it, like say someone starts in their 40s and they're like, okay, I'm going to get off in their 50s. It's like you're fighting two battles now of like getting off of it and just what you naturally deal with when you're in your 50s.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
fuck.
Yeah, it's exacerbating everything for sure. So
Yeah.
it's not a great solution, but it is kind of a solution that doctors have, regular doctors. Now, a lot of
Mhm.
functional medicine doctors, that's a different story, naturopaths and things like that.
Mhm.
But this isn't, it's not, how do I put it? It's a very complex issue because it creates all kinds of issues all over the place, and not just, we talked about hormones specifically, but mood, libido, sexual performance, performance in the gym, energy, brain fog. All of these things are impacted by it. Unexplained weight gain can be impacted by it. The inability to actually recover muscle after you work out or build muscle. You can kind of plateau in the gym really easily when these hormones are out of balance. All that stuff can be affected. And so it's complex in that way, but it's not so complex in the solution. The hardest part of the solution, frankly, is just cleaning up your act, getting the stuff
Yeah.
out of your life, which, like I said, is just a step-by-step process. And it's challenging, but it's not nearly as overwhelming as it used to be because there's so many good alternatives out there.
Yeah.
But then it's a matter of, okay, well, how do we clean out the crap that we've been collecting for the first 30, 40, 50 years of our life, depending on how old we are at this.
Yes, because now all I picture is like this sock with all these things attached to it. And we're like, well, how do we get this off? Because
Yeah,
I've been like
exactly.
collecting it forever. So, how do we cleanse in a sense? How do we get it out?
Well, as with most things, at least this is my take on it,
Okay.
nature has a solution. And nature has a solution, not pharma companies. And the solution is actually a combination of three primary things, three primary ingredients. And there's other things that kind of go along with them that make it work better. But there's three main things. There's something called calcium D-glucarate.
Okay.
There's another one called indole 3-carbinol and another one called DIM, DIM. Now, a lot of people have heard of DIM. Most people haven't heard of the other two. And, good luck spelling indole 3-carbinol. Don't worry about that. But basically, the two that I just mentioned, the DIM and indole 3-carbinol, are both compounds that come from cruciferous vegetables. So one thing that you can do after you Google, where are my endocrine disrupting chemicals that I need to get out of my life? You can also then Google, what are the cruciferous vegetables? We know the big ones are broccoli, cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts, and I always forget the fifth one that everybody knows, cabbage. Those are the big five, but there's like 20 plus different cruciferous vegetables out there. And what's going to probably happen, if you're like most people, is you'll like some of them, you won't like others. I don't really care which ones you choose to eat, but find one or two of those, or three or four, whatever it is that you enjoy eating, and get them in your diet. A half a cup to a cup a day. We're not talking about a massive quantity here. I mean, a half a cup of broccoli is what, 3 bites, right? It's
Right.
not that big
Yeah.
of a deal.
No.
Get that into your life on a daily basis, and that will stem the tide a lot, because what those two phytochemicals do is they go in and they actually they break up that lock, basically that mechanism that keeps the endocrine disruptor in the cell.
Okay.
They actually go in and they metabolize it and break it down into smaller pieces. They then leave the cell, and then the body is able to, once it's dislodged, basically able to get rid of it through the liver. But there's another kind of 2 points to that, and you mentioned at the very beginning that, when I put you on this program, I put you on a liver cleanse as well,
Mhm.
and for good reason, not just that your blood was actually showing that you needed a little boost for liver function,
Yep.
but even if you didn't, if your doc said, "Your liver looks great, I'm not worried about it," I would still put everybody that does this on a liver cleanse, and there's a reason for that, because the liver is ultimately the filter that gets rid of this stuff after it's dislodged from the cell. And if the liver's not doing its job, then what we have is we have a bunch of little pieces of these endocrine disruptors that can recycle and go back and actually create more problems.
Of course.
So there are people that will start to detoxify with this stuff and actually feel worse, not better, because they're detoxifying the cell, but they're not detoxifying the body. So that's a really, really important component to this. And then that first ingredient that I mentioned is called calcium deglucarate.
Mhm.
And I want everybody listening that does not have a gallbladder to hear this, but everybody, even with a gallbladder, because Melissa, I think you probably know this. A lot of people are walking around without gallbladders now. That's
Yep.
a pretty common surgery in this country. Your gallbladder makes bile, and then, or sorry, your liver makes bile. Your gallbladder stores bile, and then the bile is released when we eat fatty foods. But one of the things that people don't think about with bile is it has what's called a conjugation capacity. It conjugates chemicals and basically grabs them and binds them and then escorts them through the body. If your gut isn't functioning optimally, and I would dare say that 95% of Americans' guts are not functioning optimally, then your body is making a lot of something called glucuronic acid. Glucuronic acid splits that bond. And so it makes it so that the bile can't do its job and these things recycle again. So deglucarate breaks down glucuronic acid. It's kind of the escort for the bile, protects the bile in grabbing those chemicals and helps the body get rid of it. So if you don't have a gallbladder, you absolutely need calcium deglucarate. But if you do have a gallbladder, you need at least a little. And so the
Okay.
formula that I put you on, the Endo Cleanse, has all three of those things in it. For people that also need that also don't have a gallbladder, sometimes I'll actually recommend a little extra calcium deglucarate just to make sure that we're grabbing a hold of that stuff
Hmm.
and pulling it through the body. The liver cleanse idea is all about just making sure the liver is doing its thing.
Yeah.
And the liver, just like the endocrine system, is bombarded with all of this, for lack of a better term, shit that's bogging down things and
Right.
preventing the liver from actually doing its job. You should look at your liver the way as you look at an air filter in your car or your home. Clean it, even if you're not sure if it needs to be cleaned. Make sure that you're detoxifying your liver a couple of times a year for like 30 days. And that's not super hard to do. A good liver cleanse will do that really, really well. And we hear that all the time. Fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is at an all-time high in this country. And the herbs and nutrients that are in the liver vitality actually help to address all of that so that the liver can do what it's supposed to do. And then what happens is we have a whole bunch of cells that their ears are open again. They can hear the message and the body starts to respond. So you made a really great point earlier when you said, what are people doing when they have low T? Well, they're usually trying to increase T.
Mhm.
And the way they're doing it is either naturally, they're going with herbs like fenugreek or tribulus or DHEA or things like that, or they're going to like a men's clinic or their endocrinologist and taking a shot.
Yeah.
There's not necessarily anything wrong with those things.
Mhm.
Those can all be useful, and if done correctly, I think they can even be done relatively safely. However, if the cells are still blocked, then throwing more testosterone at a cell that can't receive it
Right.
still doesn't do the job. We still don't get the benefit. And I can't tell you how many guys I've had come in and say, "I'm on testosterone and my testosterone's still low." It's like, well, that's because it's going in there knocking on the door and nobody's answering.
Right. Right. It can once you clean it out and the cells are open and it's like, yes, like, hallelujah. Do you see the natural numbers rising on their own, even if someone is in their 40s, 50s?
Yeah, I brought up that guy at the very beginning from like 15 years ago. This
Mhm.
was the first guy that I had the opportunity to help with this, where I actually had blood tests that I could say, okay, what are we actually making progress,
Yeah.
basically? And what I told him was, I said, the first thing we have to do is detoxify your system, because he was considering testosterone injections. And I said, that's fine, but let's see what your body can do if we
Mhm.
get the dam out of the way that's actually preventing it from, flowing like it's supposed to in the first place. And he said, okay, that's fine. I get that. I'd rather do it naturally. Let's see what we do. So he was getting his blood tested every 2 months. And he had been for quite a while because they were trying to figure out if it was him or his wife that were struggling with
Right.
fertility and all this stuff, right? So he was getting his blood tested on a regular basis. 2 months into this detoxification program, his testosterone had increased 200 points.
Wow.
So he went from like mid 200s to mid 400s, and nothing he took was actually pro testosterone. Nothing
Right.
added testosterone. It just cleared the plate so his body can upregulate again and start producing more like it should. Now, 400 wasn't enough. By the time he got there, we went now a couple of months with pro testosterone herbs, and we got him up into the 600s. So from 200s to 600s with no injections, and 600s, at least according to the doctor, is great. I would like
Right.
to have seen him at 800 or more, but we got him to, I think it was 660, if I remember, was the last number that he shared with me, from low 200s to 660, just letting his body do what it's supposed to do and then giving it a little gentle push with some herbs.
Right. I think that's so important for people to hear and to know, like, even if you are supplementing and on some type of hormones or whatever, that's great, yay, but that doesn't fix the problem. Your body's like you said, I love the analogy of, like, knocking on the door, no one's still not gonna answer.
Exactly.
There's no one there. So, okay, so what's the protocol with the endo cleanse? Before we came on, I was at because I was off. I did my cycle and then I was off, and I'm like, I think it's time for me to get back on it again. What is the typical like cycle and pattern of it? 3 months on, 3 months off?
If you've never done this before, and I would anticipate the vast majority of people listening have never done anything like this
Never,
before,
probably.
the two things that I recommend, and I actually am recommending it a little differently now than I did even with you, Melissa, because we just keep getting more data from people coming in,
Yeah.
sharing their results. So now we recommend 3 months minimum on Endo Cleanse. Endo Cleanse is an herbal complex that has those three key ingredients in it
Okay.
to get rid of these things, and then a few herbs to support detoxification. And it's just 2 capsules a day. It's a really simple thing to do.
Morning, night,
And
does it matter?
I usually recommend morning and night, 1 capsule in the morning, one at night. But honestly,
Oh.
two a day, whenever you want to take it, is doesn't seem to make that much difference as far as results. So I'm not over.
And other question, is there
Yeah.
anything you shouldn't take it with? Like, should you never take with your vitamin D or like
No, not really, actually.
okay,
It doesn't have anything really binding in it that would grab a hold of stuff that you want in the body.
okay,
It's all going in there. Well, the biggest thing to keep in mind with it is that it's basically all food. Most of the stuff that's in there actually comes from food, and so it's not even very as herbal as some herbal formulas go, if that makes sense. It's much more food like. So no concerns as far as that goes.
okay.
But do it minimum of 3 months, and then at that point, you really reevaluate what are your symptoms. And something that you can do is you can actually look. This is another thing you can do. I'm giving you three things to Google now. Google where are the endocrine disruptors, right? That's the first thing. And then the second thing is what are the cruciferous vegetables that I can eat? The third thing would be what are the symptoms of endocrine disruption
Mm,
for, and then I want you to type in who you are, a 40-year-old woman or a 35-year-old guy or whatever it is. And then I want you to just make a checklist of, where are you at on those on that symptom list? If you've got 6 or 7 or 8 of these symptoms, there's a really good chance that doing this will improve them significantly. And I've had people that have kind of made this checklist and they're like, oh my gosh, this whole thing is me, right? Like all of these symptoms apply to me. So look at that. And then a month in, I expect people to feel better, uh, improvement in some way. What I tell people, women in particular, it's really, really useful. Women who are still menstruating, this is a really useful thing because the period tells us a ton about your hormone health,
right.
right? And I always tell women the first cycle, and nobody likes to hear this, sometimes is worse.
Mm,
Sometimes you actually have worse PMS. Sometimes it comes too early or it waits a little longer before it hits or whatever. The body is kind of being disrupted from the disruptors at that point.
okay.
But it's not usually severe, but sometimes it's a little worse. Oftentimes it's just the same as it's been, but there's no real improvement. The second cycle is almost always better. And in many cases, like significantly better. And the third cycle, you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't had this easy of a period in the longest time. And I hear that
Mhm,
all the time. I was just on the phone with a client last week that told me this is the best period I've had since I started having periods. And she's 35.
mhm.
And so, for 20 years or whatever, since she started having her cycle, best one after 3 months. At that point, then you need to decide if you're doing really great, you can probably jump off of it. If you're doing good, but you feel like there's more room for improvement, do another 30 days. Nothing in the product is unsafe to take every single day. It's just kind of overkill to probably take it every single day. You're on hormone replacement. If you're on hormone replacement therapy, men or women, so if you're on TRT as a guy or you're on hormone replacement as a woman, then I recommend going to just one capsule a day for maintenance, two capsules a day for that 3, 4 months, one capsule a day for maintenance, because you need more support when you're on hormone replacement, because hormone replacement can actually, in the end, create more disruption. So you have to kind of find balance with that. And that's an important thing.
And do you
So
mean HRT as in like a prescription HRT, or are you talking like bioidentical
I'm
hormones? Like, what if
either
someone's
one, especially regular prescription HRT.
yeah,
Bioidentical is much less likely to create that issue,
okay,
but it still can. And even if we're still talking about that door knocking analogy. If you're actively trying to get more hormone in, make sure the door is open, right? Make sure that
right?
it can get there. And there's no downside to taking a little of this on a regular basis. I don't think you need the 2 a day once you've done that initial cleanse, but the 1 a day, absolutely. And then experiment with it. We do have some people that just do better when they're on 2 a day ongoing, and that's fine too. So you just have to kind of figure out how your body responds to it. But let's say you're not on hormone replacement, you're dealing with this stuff and you know you want to clean it out. Then you do 2 months on the liver vitality. I used to do just 1 month, but I found so many people with such sluggish livers that they weren't getting the results that they needed. And I pegged that on the liver still not doing its job well enough. And so we do 2 months on liver vitality, and then you're off of that. 3 months on endo cleanse, and you can get both of those in a 2 month supply and 3 month supply. So it's easy as far as that goes. And then take a break, and take a break for like 4 months, and then do 2 more months on endo cleanse with 1 month on liver vitality. So that's basically the protocol. So basically, twice a year, once you've done the initial purge, we'll say, you're doing for 2 months a run of 1 month of liver vitality, 2 months of endo cleanse, take 4 months off, 1 month on liver vitality, and 2 months of endo cleanse, and then take 4 months off. You just kind of keep doing that and see how your body does with that. Experiment a little more, a little less, depending on how you're feeling and what your circumstances are.
Okay. I think I need that like written down.
Happy to, I'll send you that specifically if you want to throw it in the show description for people.
I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
because
can
I
do that.
think and I know a lot of people, like, after I say that I'm on something or tried something, and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna get on it and try it too." But it really did make a difference, and I didn't even know that about the period, and that is so true. After I did that, honestly, I don't think I've ever had as easy of periods as I had since then. Like
Well, and that's also, first off, glad to hear it. That's awesome. I hear it
yay!
so often. But also, that's a great indicator in women if you need to do it again. If the period starts getting a little worse,
Mhm.
in women that are dealing with hot flashes and menopausal symptoms, if they start to get worse after you've been on it for a few months, that's your body saying, "Hey, things are getting clogged up again. I need a
Yeah.
little more support." And again, no harm in doing this more often. I try not to have people on stuff longer than they need to be on it. And overkill is overkill, and everything's expensive. And so I don't like people to just take stuff to take stuff, but listen to your body and take it correctly. And then the other thing that's important to understand is this is a really inexpensive thing to do. That's one thing that people are
Right?
always worried about when they're listening to a podcast like this. But you're talking about for that five that 2 months of liver and 3 months of endo cleanse. I think you're talking something like, I should have prepared. It's like $120 or something like that for all 3 months.
Oh, yeah,
So
it's
you're
not bad at all.
$40 a month for the
Mhm.
entire thing, and then you're off of it for 4 months,
Right.
and then you're doing a shorter cycle of that. And so it's not a very expensive supplement regimen to be on.
That's awesome. Jared, this has been, like, so educational. It's, like, absolutely perfect. I think it's perfect for this time of year, and I think a lot of people are gonna be listening going like, "Oh my god, this makes sense.
I hope so.
This is why." I think a lot of light bulbs will go off. I always have these episodes where, like, people listen and they're just like, "That one. That episode just made that light bulb go off," and I think this is one of them. Any last message that you wanna send off to our
Well,
listeners before we
I'll
start?
say this: you have control over half of this as far as the stuff that gets in your
Mhm.
body. Pay attention to that, and you will pay a much heavier price in the long run with your health if you're not focused on what you're self-inflicting. Right? That's number one. Number two is, because it's not all self-inflicted, whether your hormone picture seems to be good or not, you need to detoxify this stuff. But I will tell you that even if you don't realize you've got symptomology that's related to this, once you've done the detox, in almost every case, you feel a lot better. And so then you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I could feel this good,
Right?
whether it's energy or brain fog or how you're performing in the gym or in the bed or anything else. All of
Mhm.
that stuff improves almost across the board. We almost never have anybody come back and say, I didn't see anything. Everybody notices benefit. So those are the first couple things. And then if you want to kind of deep dive on this and you're interested, my podcast, Vitality Radio, I have 2 episodes 100% dedicated to this that are both like an hour long. And then I go way deeper on how to do it, why to do it, all that kind
Mhm.
of stuff.
And I mean, I can speak from experience when I went back and got my blood test back every 3 months, they were like, "Oh my god, this is, like, amazing." And I one of the nurse practitioner I was talking to, she literally said, like, "We just don't see this. We just don't see people improve like this." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay,
Well,
awesome."
there it's because most people aren't addressing the root cause. That's really what you got to get down
Right.
underneath what's actually happening
Thank you again, Jared, for coming on. This was great. We're gonna have you back because I know we're gonna get a lot of questions.
to it.
All right, everyone, stay safe, stay healthy. Until next time. The Bomb Life podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The content shared here is not intended as medical, legal, or professional advice. Always consult with a qualified professional before making any health, fitness, financial, or legal decisions. The opinions shared on this podcast are personal experiences and insight. So if you need expert guidance, go find the right professional for you. Thanks for listening.